up, you guys? This is Rob from The Gay Guy Plays, and it's officially here. I do believe that this is the second year in a row that I've finished off NoDeWiHoE with one of these. So, we might as well keep the tradition alive with a hit list targeting my top 5 favorite frames of 2014. Now, as always, the disclaimer. This is my top 5 favorite frames of 2014. Not the top 5 that I think are the most powerful, not even the top 5 that I use the most, but the top 5 frames that I really enjoyed playing this year. Just be aware that while number 1 and number 2 were super easy choices, it was like Battle Royale choosing the rest since the roster is filled out with some really interesting frames this year. So, let's jump right in. At number 5 comes the ever so polarizing Limbo. Now, I've been enamored from day one. With an extremely high skill ceiling, mastering him provided to be a welcome challenge. Now, he's not made for everyone, as his skill set is not focused on straightforward damage or the typical line of defense. However, for players who can think outside the box and adapt their tactics to the changing states of the battlefield, Limbo is a powerhouse. So, Limbo secures his spot by showing that skill and playstyle still matters. At number 4, our next target is the recently primed Nova. Now, to be honest, with all of the new frames that came out this year, she didn't reappear on my radar until the most recent changes to the way power strength affected Molecular Prime. This opened my eyes to what I think of as the endgame switch. It's the same point where Extended Invis Loki turns into Radial Disarm Loki, or when Iron Skin Rhino turns into Roar or Stomp Rhino. Her ability to slow enemies to a crawl while also applying a potent damage multiplier turns her from a one-woman wrecking ball into a team-playing linchpin. So, Nova makes the list for her ability to evolve into the endgame. Next on the list is our resident gunslinger Mesa. Now, to be honest, she's on here for sheer badassery. That fucking ulti though. While her feasibility for endgame is questionable, she's got one of the most well-balanced straightforward kits to date. From single target to area of effect damage, from close range disables to long range damage deflection. She has an answer for almost any faction, adjusting her playstyle accordingly. In addition, she's got no weird modding concerns, as all of her abilities scale with pretty much the same things. So, for being simple yet effective, Mesa lands the number 3 spot. Now our next target clawed all the way up to number 2 from her number 5 spot on last year's list. After Valkyr's animation reworks and a much clearer view of exactly what affected the damage from her ultimate, I knew she had to be on the list. However, what solidified her at number 2 wasn't the fact that she could turn herself invincible, or how cathartic it was to rip someone in half using energy claws. Strangely enough, she got on this list for how much she sucked. After an attempt at making a build using prolonged paralysis, I discovered possibly one of my favorite builds to date. Not only is it hilarious, but it's hilariously effective. So Valkyr lands the runner-up spot for showing me that you gotta give things a try regardless of how ridiculous they sound. Now, before we get to the number 1 spot, I'd like to give credit where credit is due and take a quick look at a couple of the frames that just missed making the list. At number 8 comes Hydroid, our hentai captain. With his ability to zone out areas of the map and prove that while Vauban may be better at defense, he's got much bigger tentacles. In addition, Curative Undertow solidifies him as a great grouping frame, who has the skills to make anyone moist. Nyx is next, still holding on to her number 7 spot from last year's hit list. To be honest, she's one of the frames that I use the most this year. She can solo defense, mobile defense, and interceptor fairly easily on her own. And while she wasn't my favorite to use, it was always good to know that I had a powerhouse in my back pocket. Now at number 6, Zephyr just barely misses making the list. Her ability to become near invulnerable against half of the factions in game, provide moving cover for the rest of her team, as well as an ultimate that looks undeniably epic, that in addition can change its elemental properties to be better suited for whatever faction you're dealing with, makes her an incredibly impressive frame. However, her faction restrictions did keep her from the top 5. Now, for those who've been watching me for a while, you know that there is one frame missing from this list.
A challenger has arrived!
Once again, Loki tops the charts and takes his spot as my favorite frame of 2014. Now, to quote what I said last year, unless they make changes to the core mechanics of his ability, Loki in his current state will still be viable. And the fact is, they haven't changed. In fact, aside from some minor tweaks they made to the stealth mechanic, I'd almost say that with the addition of the Syndicate mods, he's improved. They've taken his teleport troll and turned it into targeted invulnerability. His ultimate has become even more ultimate, taking influence from one of the most powerful control frames in game. I'll say it now and I will say it again. Loki has proved his worth from low-level content well into endgame. None of his skills rely on scaling, so when Rhino's Iron Skin crumbles, Frost's Snow Globe shatters, and Ash's Bladestorm barely leaves a scratch, this sneaky bastard is manipulating the battlefield in ways that very few Warframes can. So, for showing us yet again that true power doesn't rely on brute strength, Loki holds his spot at number 1 on my top 5 frames of 2014. Now, since we're sticking to traditions, let's end this the same way I did last year. So, thank you all for watching another episode of The Hit List. If you disagree, you can go suck a dick, because this is my list. It's my list. But I more than encourage the rest of you to leave your 5 favorite frames in the comment box below. Now, if you all didn't get to catch it, be sure to check out last year's hit list, as well as the rundown I did on Itzel, my favorite Archwing to date. So, don't forget to do the thing that I asked you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, Merry NoDeWiHoE from me, Rob, at A Gay Guy Plays. Well, I guess that's just what happens when you're up until 3 AM working on videos. Sometimes you just forget some shit.